Hello everyone, welcome to this DevTools crash course about using the network tool. My name is Patrick, and today in this video we'll see how to use the network tool and why it's such an essential part of any web development project. By the end of this video, you should be comfortable enough to find the network tool and know how to use its most common features. So let's dive in. Now, before we get started, we need to spend a little bit of time to understand why the network tool is so useful. Websites get displayed to end users by using web browsers. And the way that web browsers display the website is by downloading a bunch of data from a server or maybe multiple servers. Now, the download happens over a protocol known as HTTP or HTTPS when it's secure. And HTTP relies on a client-server model where the client is the web browser and the server is the place where you are downloading the data from. When the client or the web browser sends a message to the server, this is known as a HTTP request. And then as a result to this, the server will respond with an HTTP response. The very first request is usually a request for the homepage of the website that you are visiting. And it's usually a file named index.html. When that index.html file goes back to the web browser via an HTTP response, it gets parsed by the web browser, displayed in the tab, and usually it contains even more resources to be downloaded, like for example a CSS file or maybe a JavaScript file. And those will also get downloaded from the server. Now, if after that you click on a link to visit another page, then the tab in the web browser will be emptied, a new index.html page will be downloaded from the server, and maybe other CSS and other JavaScript files as well, or images, and all of this will be downloaded from the server and displayed in the web browser again. So as a web developer, knowing how to debug and inspect what happens on the client side, i.e. the web browser, is very important. And knowing what's happening on the server side is also very important, and you need to debug that as well. But being able to use tools to understand what happens in the middle, in the network part, is going to be very important as well. So in general, you'll be using the network tool to know if requests are being sent correctly, if responses are received correctly, how much data you're downloading, and whether there's any HTTP errors along the way. But as we'll see in this video, you can use the network tool for even more than that. You can use it to investigate potential performance problems and even debug your server-side APIs. All right, let's take a look at the tool itself. First, let's open DevTools. You can press Ctrl-Shift-I on Windows or Linux, or Command-Option-I on Mac, or you can just press F12. Once you have DevTools open, you can click on the network tool in the top toolbar, and by default the tool is going to be empty, but we can already understand the structure of the tool. First, at the top you have a toolbar where you can choose different options for the tool, as well as filter or search resources. Then below that you have a overview section that will display all of the network traffic over time. And the main area below that is the place where all of the HTTP requests are going to be displayed. Now again, the tool is empty right now, but as soon as you open DevTools, the network tool is listening for HTTP traffic. So if the current website makes a request to the server, it will be displayed there. So let's do a refresh of the current page so that we can see the index.html being downloaded and all of the other resources. As you can see, the overview section starts showing a high-level view of the network traffic, and the HTTP requests start appearing in a list. Now let's quickly review what's in the table. Each row in the table is a single HTTP request, and within that row will be all of the information about that request as well as the response that was received from the server. The name column, for example, is the name of the file that was downloaded from the server. The domain column will tell you what domain name the resource was downloaded from. We can also see the HTTP status to know whether the request was successful or not. And the last column on the right side of the table is the waterfall. It shows over time when each request was sent and how long it took for the response to come. Now you can scroll through the table to see the entire list, and you can click on each individual request to see even more information about each of them. If you want to clear the table and overview section, you can click on the Clear button in the top left corner of the toolbar. Or you can simply navigate to another page or refresh the current page. This will result in emptying the network tool and logging the new requests. Here's a little tip for you, by the way. If you don't want to clear the network tool every time you refresh or navigate to another page, you can click the Preserve Log checkbox and all of the past requests will still be in the network tool. Now let's click on one of the requests. The details view on the right hand side appears, and it contains a bunch of information about the request and the response. This information is organized in tabs. The first one there is the headers tab. This tab shows information that was sent between the client and the server on top of the request and the response themselves. That's the metadata that the client and the server are sending each other about the request and the response, like the size of the response, the content type, etc. Next to this, you have the preview tab, which will show a preview of the response that was received. So if it's an HTML response, for example, you'll see a preview of that HTML web page. You also have the response tab to see the raw text of the response that was received from the server. And you also have an initiator tab, which is very useful because it tells you what led to a request being sent. For example, if a request was made from JavaScript code, then you'll see the list of JavaScript functions that led to that request. It may be useful to customize the tools to your own needs. There are two ways you can do this. One is you can customize the columns in the main table. First of all, you can resize them, making them wider or narrower by dragging the separator between each column. But you can also customize which columns there are. Right-click on any one of them and you can choose either to add more columns or to remove existing columns. Now, another way you can customize the tool is by clicking on the settings icon in the top right corner of the tool. This will display a new section where you can customize the tool even more. For example, you can hide the overview section, or you can make the request rows wider so that you can see more information at once. Now, one very common thing you'll need to do with the network tool is to find specific requests. Depending on the web page you're working on, there may be hundreds, if not more, requests logged in the tool. And so finding one in particular can prove actually pretty hard. The network tool makes this very simple though. You can sort, filter, and even search through responses. First option, sorting requests. Just click on the header of any of the columns and then you can sort by that column. For example, if you're looking for the biggest downloaded resources, you can sort by size. Second, you can filter requests. Now, the second line of the toolbar is what makes that possible. It has lots of different buttons in it to filter by different types of request types. If you're looking only for CSS resources, for example, or JavaScript resources, you can click on those names, or you can click on all to see all requests again. But there's also a text field on the left side of that toolbar that allows you to filter even more. You can start typing the name of a resource that you're looking for, and the list will filter by that name. By the way, this text field even supports some special keywords. For example, method followed by a column and then the name of the method will filter by all of the requests that were sent using this method. Another example is to use the larger than keyword followed by a column and then the size in bytes of the resource that you're looking for. If you want to find all of the resources that are larger than 350 kilobytes, you can type larger than column 350,000. And then finally, you can search for requests. You can do this by pressing Ctrl F or just clicking the search icon in the toolbar. This will open up a sidebar panel where you can type the thing you're looking for. Searching is useful when you're looking for something that's within the response to a request, or maybe within an HTTP header. For example, let's say you're looking for a particular JavaScript function name, but you don't remember where the file is that contains that function. You can type the name in the search field, press enter, and all of the matching resources will be displayed in the sidebar. The network tool can be super useful when investigating performance problems as well. For example, if you look at the bottom of the network tool, you'll see how many requests were sent and how much total data was downloaded. You can even know when the load event and the DOM content loaded event occurred, and this will give you a sense of how much time was spent waiting for the page to appear. You can even simulate slower connections. This can be very useful. You're likely doing your development with a very comfortable internet access, but this may not be the case of your users. You can throttle your connection to see what it feels like to use your site with a slower connection. You can do even more with the network tool. A couple of examples. You can block requests. If you want to see what your website looks like and feels like when some of the resources can't be downloaded, maybe third-party fonts for example, you can block those resources. You can even export the content of the network tool and send the exported file as a HAR file to a friend or a colleague so that they can help you debug a particular problem. One very useful thing that the network tool does only in Microsoft Edge is allow you to edit and resend requests. This is useful if you're working with the server-side API. Right-click on the request, select Edit and Resend, and the Network Console tool will open up at the bottom. From there, you can edit the parameters of the request, send it again. You can even create new requests from scratch and see what responses the server returns for them. That's it for today. I hope you learned a few things about the network tool. You can find a lot more information about this tool as well as all of the other tools at aka.ms/devtools-docs. Thanks for watching, happy debugging, and see you in the next video.